welcome to the Leather Journey. Today we're going to talk some about bladesmithing and what a bladesmith in a leather house would do, and what a bladesmith in the new house mermaid might end up doing. But generally speaking, there's two types of blades in a leather house setting. One is the kitchen blades that are used for cooking, and then of course play blades that are used in the dungeon. And I've got some of both today to show and talk about. But let's talk first about the position. If you were 24/7 living in the house or a leather house, and you were assigned to be the bladesmith, then you would be responsible for all of these knives and the sharpness of all of these knives, maintaining and sharpening the knives when they needed it. We currently don't have a bladesmith, and so I as the housemaster like to do all the cooking, so I also maintain the kitchen blades. And when I do kitchen blades, I also look at my dungeon play knives and decide whether or not any of them need to be sharpened. And I've got a couple. I've got a small blade that goes on a chain around the neck that I'm going to sharpen today, as well as an older hunting knife with about a 6-inch blade. One of my preferences for play, and I think you've seen this in other videos, is simply a blade that only has one edge so I can maintain control of it, and that it has a clean edge so that it can be sharpened with a whetstone and maintained for maintenance. I've got an example of a blade that I don't like. This small knife has part of it has a serrated edge, and then the tip is a clean edge, and it's impossible to sharpen. So it came as part of a keychain set, but I wouldn't personally buy a blade like that because it's just not the style of blade that I like. So if you were 24/7 in the house and you were assigned to be the house bladesmith, you would be responsible for maintaining all of these. In the new house mermaid, we're looking at doing a couple of large convention events every year. So if you were the bladesmith of the new house mermaid and you could attend the con, you would bring your bladesmithing equipment, and you would expect to maintain the blades of the dominants in the house that had brought blades for knife play in the dungeon. So let's first look at the equipment that I use. This is a Norton multi-oil stone. It's number IM-313, made in the United States. So what is a Norton oil stone? It's a triple sided whetstone. It has a coarse side, a medium stone, and then a fine stone, and the fine stone is kind of reddish in color, and I call it an Indian stone. This particular setup is actually tilted, and you'll figure out which way you like it turned, but I like it turned because I'm right-handed. I like the high side on my dominant hand, and then I move down the stone as I'm working with a knife. So it's a 3-step process, and it sits in an oil bath, a mineral oil bath. So you need food-grade mineral oil in the bath. It's not a quick process. First step for me is to take a pass on the rough stone, and my goal when I do the rough stone is to get the right angle of the knife on the stone, and to use my offhand to apply even pressure across the length of the blade as I pass the knife down the whetstone. So for kitchen knives, my preference is pretty much the same as for play. I like a knife that has a clean straight edge that can be sharpened, Most of my kitchen knives are Dexter Russell, made in the USA. They're non-staining, high carbon stainless steel, and they're easily sharpened. For steak knives, I prefer the same, a clean edge that can be sharpened. These aren't overly expensive, they're just Chicago cutlery, but again, they're made in the US and they can be sharpened. So that's kind of my cut on knives, my preference. So the rough side, I would take a pass, and my goal would be to get a nice clean rough edge on both sides. I don't worry about burrs at that point. Then when I shift to the medium stone, so I do all my knives on the rough side, then the second step is to move to the medium stone. When I go to the medium stone, my goal is to remove any burrs or nicks and get a nice clean, smooth pass. So even pressure, the right angle, and just move down the whetstone. And I try to do an even number on both sides. I won't bore you with watching me sharpen 30 or 40 knives here, but this is a process, and I do it a couple times. Well, I do it when it's needed, but if I haven't done it in a couple of years, I do all my knives at once. So then once I've removed the burrs and nicks and I have a nice, clean, smooth edge, then I'll move to the fine stone and repeat the process. It's not quick. It takes time. It takes some patience. But the end result is you have some really nice sharp knives that have a very clean edge, a very clean blade, and they cut nicely, regardless of whether you're cutting vegetables, steak, or whether you're playing in the dungeon. Some knife play in the dungeon involves blood play. Some knife play does not. That's negotiated. But the purpose of this video was just to talk a little bit about being the bladesmith in a lifestyle setting. So if we're doing a play blade, it to me is the same process. I'm going to begin with the rough stone, and I'm going to make a few passes until I get an edge. And I don't worry about burrs or nicks. I worry about getting a nice sharp edge. And I don't necessarily want it to be a sharp and smooth edge. I want it to be a sharp and rough edge, because the next step is to go to the medium stone and get those burrs out and nicks, and to work on smoothing up that edge. Always have a rag to wipe the oil off and the shavings. When I get a nice smooth edge and I'm ready to finish it, then I'll move to the fine bladed whetstone, the Indian stone. And honestly, I'd have to look closely to tell you what the grit is. I would say this Indian stone is probably a 600 grit. It might even be finer than that. Okay, so that is it for bladesmithing. If you're interested in being the house bladesmith, then feel free to contact me on Fetlife. Otherwise, happy smithing, and thanks for watching The Leather Journey.